Hey everyone, and happy Tuesday. Welcome to this week's Tuesday Leadership Tip. And this week, I want to build on last week's conversation around coaching your employees during your one-on-ones. And I'm going to start with a story. So last week, I'm driving to my sister's house, and I took a different route to avoid some traffic. But where she lives has bad cell reception, and I lost my GPS. And I quickly realized that I really didn't know my way around where she lives, and I have always just relied on my GPS to get me there. So here I was wondering how in the world I was going to find my way to her place, when luckily the GPS kicked back in after a few minutes and I was able to make it there. But it was at this point that I realized I needed to start paying attention more to the road signs and the streets around her house. And this reminded me of how many times when I talk with managers and them saying how they have to go over the same things with the team over and over until they're blue in the face. And unfortunately, when this happens, it's because they have become that autopilot GPS brain for their employees. So today, I want to talk about a technique that's incredibly helpful at fixing this, but often underutilized, and that's guided self-discovery. So, what is guided self-discovery? Well, it's when instead of giving someone the answer, you ask the kind of questions that help them uncover the answer for themselves. It's the difference between solving the problems for them versus developing their ability to solve problems on their own. And that distinction, well, that's huge because in coaching, especially if you're in a leadership position, your job isn't to just get results today. It's to build those thinkers, the decision makers, and potentially future leaders for tomorrow. The temptation is great, I get it. To jump in with solutions, it's very strong, especially when you're pressed for time. And admittedly, if the customer's right there, this might not be the time to practice this type of coaching. But aside from those situations, every time that you solve something for someone, you potentially rob them of growth. Let me give you just a quick real-world example. Last week, I was at a dealership, and one of the salespeople I was coaching was struggling with closing deals. Not an uncommon thing. And he was saying, I'm doing everything right in the demo, but I just keep getting ghosted. And I could have easily jumped in with plenty of suggestions and tips. Top salespeople, this is what they're doing. But instead, I started asking questions, like, what have you tried so far? And what do you think is causing the customer to hesitate? If you were the customer, what would make you feel more confident about moving forward? So I asked this, a few more questions, and you know what? Within a few minutes, he started coming up with ideas and solutions without me having to tell him. And because, and this is key, it was his ideas, not mine, he owned them. And that's the power of guided self-discovery. When people arrive at the solution themselves, it sticks. And possibly more importantly, because they had to struggle through finding the solution, they remember it, they trust it, and they're growing from it. Just like back to my story. When I left my sister's after that visit, guess what? I started paying attention to the street signs and, looking for easy to remember landmarks. And I challenged myself the next time I visited her that I was going to take that different route, but this time without the help of use of my phone. And you know what? 6 hours later, I made it. No, actually, I did make one wrong turn but I quickly realized what I recalled from last time and corrected it. And your employees, they might not be perfect either when you challenge them to think it through on their own. But it will stick, and that's going to save you a lot of time and headache that you desperately need. And here's the good news. You don't have to be a psychologist to use this technique. You just need a few go-to questions in your back pocket. Try some of these the next time a team member comes to you and brings you a problem. What do you think is the real obstacle here? Try this one. What worked for you in the past in situations like this? Or seeing other employees that are strong at this? What are some different ways you could tackle this? And what is one small step you could take right now? Now, the goal is not to interrogate them. It's to guide them down this thought path that builds their confidence and their capabilities. I'll leave you with this. If every time someone brings you a challenge and you hand them a solution, you're the bottleneck. But if you use that moment to coach through discovery, you become a developer of your people. And that's what great leaders do. So this week, in your one-on-ones, try it out. Instead of solving, start guiding. And watch what happens. Thank you, and have a great week.